All right, we've got Dylan Walker, the singer, or more accurately, the screamer of Full of Hell, on the show today. And Full of Hell, or Full of Heck for the G-rated version of this podcast, is a band that I have known for several years. I actually booked their first show in Chicago, which was probably back in 2011 or something like that, at a basement called the Juicer that had some palm trees, inflatable palm trees that is, hung up there. And we awkwardly did like a workout before the show. And it was a nice time for everyone involved. And since then, Full of Hell has gone on to become a powerhouse in the screaming emo violence scene. They've been out on tour with a band called Cattle Decapitation, and they've been playing with bands like 1349, Entombed, Immolation, the Cavaleras Conspiracy, all kinds of great stuff. And they put out a record recently called Trumpeting Ecstasy, which is totally amazing. I've always enjoyed Full of Hell, and I've always liked them, and they're my friends. And when I heard this record, it kind of blew me away. It was sort of another level of songwriting and atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. And when your friends go from like, yeah, this is awesome and I like them, to like, whoa, this is totally insanely good, that's always a great feeling. So Dylan and I get into a bunch of stuff in terms of bands that have influenced Full of Hell, some weird stories from his childhood, some spooky stories from his childhood, and sort of understanding how he conceptualizes and thinks about music and art, and how Full of Hell has a creative vision that they're able to apply to all their different projects, since they are a very prolific band. They have a collaboration record with The Body coming out called Ascending a Mountain of Heavy Light. It's going to be on Thrill Jockey Records, and it might actually be out by the time this podcast gets posted. But heard some stuff from that, which is, again, very excellent and bizarre. If you like the previous collaboration with The Body, this one is a little bit different, but not too far out of the realm of what you'd expect from these two bizarre bands. So with that, let's hear from Dylan.
Did you recognize my greeting? I said, "Hello, it's Mrs. Doubtfire."
Oh, okay.
You ever see that movie?
Do you want to know an actual fact?
Yeah.
The answer is I have not seen the entire movie.
Maybe it's an age thing. I don't know. I was like a little kid when it came out.
Well, no, so was I, and I wasn't allowed to watch it
because it was a home invader masquerading as an old woman.
I think that's probably why. No, it was. Dude, it was PG. It was PG-13.
Was it?
Yeah. And I was like actually not allowed to watch PG-13 movies.
I mean, that makes sense.
And was there like? I mean, I can't
believe that was PG-13. That's crazy,
dude. Well, was there like a child who was like badly behaved in the movie?
I know, like, probably at one point, one of them probably said, like, shit or something, or, like, ass.
Yeah,
maybe.
Because I was definitely sheltered as a child and was not allowed to watch many things that kind of don't make sense in retrospect. But one of the things that was, like, expressly forbidden was a lot of stuff with like bad children who were like disrespectful or rude.
I can see the logic there, sort of. They didn't want you to get any ideas.
Yeah, like, and the one thing that was like massively banned was Married with Children.
That's a show I never watched. I totally would see that you wouldn't be allowed to watch that though.
Yeah, that was like a thing that was like really, really unacceptable because the children were extremely bad and the parents were like these weird buffoons who like
talk constant shit on each other. Yeah,
and like deserve to be disrespected. And it was like, this is like a horrible family environment, and like you should not think that this is a real thing.
I mean, that would have destroyed your brain and turned you into a horrible person, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, well, the other thing too is that I was like really not allowed to watch a lot of stuff, and then I watched Terminator, the original one, at a sleepover.
Sick.
And then it like, dude, that movie like actually kind of scared the shit out of me, and I was like not able to sleep and was like afraid of it for a little while.
So you told the truth?
Well, I mean, I was just like, oh, like maybe my parents are right. Like maybe I should not watch stuff.
Well, if it's any comfort to you, I was on the other side of that coin. I think they tried maybe at some times. It was pretty inconsistent, but generally I watched what I wanted, and I was really into horror. And I was the kid that when I moved to a new town, when I was like 11, I had a bunch of kids over for a sleepover that were like pretty sheltered, and I put on The Shining, and it freaked the fuck out of all of them. It was like my favorite movie. Scared the shit out of all of them, and they all went to their parents and told them about the dead naked lady in the bathtub.
Oh, that's
and none of them were allowed to come over ever again.
Yeah, I mean that's like an actual traumatizing scene. Like even as like a full adult, I think that scene would probably be legitimately scary.
Well, for the comfort side of that, what I was saying was that my parents let me watch all those movies, and I had fucking traumatizing nightmares for years. Yeah. Like I had lots of trouble sleeping, and I don't know. It definitely fucked me up. My grandma, her and my uncle's thing was like to scare me. So when they'd come over, she would like read me a story in bed and have my uncle wait under the bed for like 30 minutes just so when I jumped off, he would grab me. But now as an adult, like scaring people is literally my favorite fucking thing in the world. One time I waited in the woods for 2 hours and I scared my family like so bad that my aunt pissed her pants and they like all ran for their lives.
Hold on.
So it's come around full circle.
So I think that both of those stories need further elaboration. So let's start with the one where you made your aunt piss her pants. What did you do?
I mean, honestly, I didn't do a whole lot, but they went for a walk near my parents' house. They lived in the woods, and I found a really sick like outcropping of bushes, and I crawled into the bush, and I just waited for like an hour. Like it was agonizing. I was so fucking bored, but I knew it would be worth it. And I waited until they were like had to be like a foot away from me, and I just made the most like demented scream I could, as loud as I fucking could, like pretty loud. And I ran at them, and they all just ran for their fucking lives. And she pissed her pants. Nothing elaborate at all. Simple scream, got him. But it was like a one instance of revenge. I mean, I've been getting them every year. We have vacations every year in the Smoky Mountains, and those woods used to be fucking terrifying because no one used to live in this area where we have a house, and it was pitch black at night. And every year when we were growing up, all they did was try to scare the shit out of us, and they told us all these crazy ass stories. And so, I mean, it's ingrained in my DNA now.
Sure, it's like some sort of like weird family ritual to like scare each other. Like some families like give gifts and like make meals for each other, and you guys scare each other. And then hold on. So I also want to understand your grandma would read you a story, and your uncle would be hiding under the bed, and
they would grab my ankle,
like at like the climax of the story, or
at the conclusion. Generally at the conclusion, when she would be like, "All right, let's go do something else," and then he would just grab me, especially if it was like within the context of the story, like. If the story had something to do, generally her stories had something to do with like, they're like archetypal stories, like kid chained in the basement all his life was deformed and he broke out and he runs around town still, or like she would tell me these stories like all the time. I actually loved them, but my uncle would wait. And I remember, I mean, he grabbed my ankle under the bed a few times, and I remember one time she had me check on the cat that was in the closet, and I would open the door and he would just be like, "Rah!" and jump out of the closet wearing a mask. Like they had tons of masks, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved it. It was fun, but it was like probably a little too much fun for like a little kid, like a little too devious. She would also tell me things that I didn't even remember as an adult, and I connected the dots recently. I have a lot of night terrors because I had this like really crazy head injury when I was like 4. And they're correlated. My parents never really let on that they were correlated. But anyway, I have this recurring nightmare where I'm like floating through my grandma's old house, and I like float out to the back shed, and the shed floor opens up, and I fall, and there's this big pit, and it's like a giant pool of water with a whale skeleton hanging from like 20 different hooks. And I was always like, it was strange that I was having this dream like over and over again, periodically through my life. It's not a very scary dream, but it was just like weird.
I mean, that's like a very like specific image as well.
It's really specific. It's because my grandma told me when I was a little kid that she had a pool, but it was hidden underground under the shed, and that there were like all kinds of fish swimming in it and stuff, and she wouldn't let me down there. But it was like a thing she told me when I was like 3. I had no memory of, but it was definitely lodged in the back of my head.
Dude, I feel like the like hidden pool is kind of I mean, sort of like you said earlier, like an archetypal, like scary
Oh,
story.
definitely.
There,
Yeah.
because I mean, at my elementary school, it was like there's some weird door
Every
that,
school had a hidden pool.
yeah, and it's like I don't even think we had one, but it was like, oh, where does that door go? And it's like, oh, that goes to a hidden pool that they closed because like a bunch
Oh,
of
yeah.
kids drowned in it. And I
Of
just
course.
don't think that's true at all, but that just, I'm sure, tickles some sort of child built-in fear that.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you look at it a certain way, and like those kind of like localized folklore tales, those are almost like mini versions of like creation stories, really, in some ways. You know, they're cultural. They pass down through generations. Like the big story in the Smoky Mountains was like, you know, like the serial killer that would like hide under the bridge.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's definitely like based on some kind of vague ass fact. And I don't know if you've ever read any Cormac McCarthy, but Child of God is set literally on the creek that my family owns a house on, and it's about a guy that murders and fucks dead bodies. Like he stashes dead ladies, and then he ends up hiding in the caves, and like it's super creepy. And there's like a ton of caves down there, and my parents and grandparents always told me stories about people living in those fucking caves and killing people. And when I read that book as an adult, I was like, whoa, this is awesome. This is where I grew up. I know this crazy ass area. You know,
Yeah.
those stories they hold people, they grip people, and they're scary sometimes.
Yeah, I started reading a book called it's a Stephen Pinker book. It's Better Angels of Our Nature, and it's actually about the reduction in violence over time on a per capita basis. But
Oh, yeah.
a lot of what he's talking about has to do with the sort of tribal instincts toward violence that human beings have, and that a lot of that essentially comes from, even though hunter-gatherers probably lived very peaceful lives within their own communities, that they would essentially like raid each other all the time.
Yeah.
And sort of ties that
Same
to
theory.
yeah, it sort of ties that to the behavior of chimps, where they have like border patrols that are very opportunistic, that if they see a chimp from a rival tribe, they will just sort of like attack and kill it like very brutally. And
Yeah.
so, you know, a lot of these scary stories and things like that have to do with people who are, you know, like being cared for by a non-genetically related relative who could potentially kill them because they have no genetic ties to them, right? That they have to do with being somewhere that's potentially on the edge of like your tribe's territory, where you could just be attacked and killed by some, you know, passerby who is from a rival tribe or something like that.
I mean, that totally makes sense. I think people think, like, in modern society, like, a lot of people would argue that our instincts are gone. But, I mean, that kind of shit is written so deeply into our genetic code. You know, I don't think it would take much for people for that to become really pronounced, like, in the event of, like, a global disaster. I mean, you can look at riots even and relate it to the, like, old hunter-gatherer instinct. I mean, that's like when people start looting, it's like basic survival instinct.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't think
maybe it's opportunistic.
Maybe you can't overwrite that. And if you look at, I always argued that if you look at like violence in society, my argument would be like suppression of violence would only come through like one, obviously like basic resources, but like being readily available, but two, education, I think is like knowledge is like the biggest way to stem violence, other than, you know, easy access to food and water. Because I think with cultural knowledge comes like empathy, maybe. I don't know. That's something that I always tried to argue.
Sure. Well, what do you mean by knowledge? Do you mean like knowledge of the mechanisms of violence, knowledge of other people's sort of plights or behavior mechanisms, or knowledge about the human condition? Like, I mean, I think there's a lot of different things.
I mean, all of the above. I think like a good education system would decrease societal violence. I think a person, say you have an ignorant person from like, you know, bumfuck Kentucky or whatever, that maybe was like a high school dropout, knows nothing of like other cultures. I think if you find like a person and you give them a book and you teach them about human life in other parts of the world and what other people experience, I think it's more conducive to like to a person feeling empathy, because maybe it kind of fosters a feeling that you're not so different from another person, or this other person's struggling. Because I think people that are in like, you find that people in economically challenged areas aren't getting the same opportunity as like in like a upper class area, and it all ends up correlating to the same end. You know, they don't have access to information, and they don't have access to food and clean water and whatever else. I just don't think they're as likely to be empathetic to another's plight if they don't understand it. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's definitely like a ton of old rich white dudes that are anti-immigration and like probably really fucking like intolerant. But I think like on a larger scale, like the people that vote like those fools into office are people that simply don't understand that like human beings are human beings, you know? And I really think that if they'd been sat down from a young age and just like they were able to glean some kind of like, you know, world knowledge and culture, and I think they would understand and appreciate other human beings just a little bit more.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there's some really interesting studies on empathy where that empathy, I think, can be a loaded term, and it can mean a few different things, and that certain types of empathy actually increase the sort of group rivalry type of feeling, right?
Oh,
Where,
it's interesting.
yeah, there's some stuff done with, I believe with soccer fans where they had a lot of empathy for their own team and for fans of their team, and had a lot of feeling, the same emotion that other people are feeling, and that when someone from their tribe, quote unquote, was being like injured or shocked or something, that they were demonstrating like extreme reactions to that. But then when someone from a rival team was being shocked, they were experiencing extreme pleasure. So
It's very strange.
Yeah, there's like a weird like sort of basic empathy that can be
very selective.
Yeah, and almost negative for I guess like societal progress in that sense. But that there's like a high, what I think a lot of people mean when they say empathy is kind of a combination of that, plus also the sort of higher order, more like prefrontal cortex recognition that we're just sort of apes with instincts, and that we need to be able to step out of what our immediate impulses in order to understand someone else's behavior.
Yeah, and recognize your higher nature. I would even argue that like that selective empathy, when you're feeling for your own tribe, or like when you're talking about like football teams and like those guys, they're looking at like fans of the other team and they feel nothing, and yet they feel all this empathy for their own teammates. I mean, that's like their cell. That's within like their unit. So it's, that's like, I don't know. That's not true empathy at all in my mind. I mean, I could have like the technical definition wrong, but when I talk about empathy, I talk about like a universal understanding that like other living things feel pain like you do, and like understanding that and trying to have like a respect for the other organisms around you,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been recording for a while, so I guess we should probably just start that somewhere around when we were talking about Mrs. Hellfire. Yeah. We can do like a real intro real quick. Got Dylan from Full of Hell on the podcast line, and got some good stories about weird childhood trauma that probably turned him into an extreme music freak.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let me ask you this then. We'll get some real questions going rather than just kind of bantering back and forth. How did you actually get into extreme music?
So when I was a kid, I was really fortunate to have parents that were really into music. So growing up, my parents were always playing like Grateful Dead records and Bob Dylan and stuff. They were in their like Dead phase and like bluegrass and Dylan and all this awesome stuff. But they had definitely had their own punk phase, and they still appreciated it. So they had a ton of CDs. And I don't remember at what age I was at. It was probably in elementary school when I was like discovering Blink-182 through some kids in school. They gave me like Clash and Sex Pistols and Bad Brains CDs, and that got me into, the first forms of like actually aggressive, rebellious music that I felt like really spoke to me, and I love the snotty vocals, and like I love like the anti-government sentiments and anti-whatever, and some of like Sex Pistols are so fashiony that like that phase was pretty brief for me. I kind of got disillusioned pretty quick the more I researched them, but stuff like the Bad Brains really stuck with me. And I don't really know exactly when I first heard a metal band, but it might have been my first, one of my first local shows. This band that was just like, they worship Dying Fetus and Cryptopsy, and they played so and like really like sick like Rabid style vocals. I didn't know a kid could do that. So these guys were like 15 or 14 years old, and when I saw this dude start singing, it blew my fucking mind, because it was just, I mean, it was just so much better than any of the punk stuff I'd heard, because I just wanted to go as hard as fucking possible. So when I saw that band, it definitely like kind of changed my life, because I didn't think that was something like a kid was capable of.
Sure.
So I pretty much started getting all of my metal recommendations from that local band. And like Cryptopsy was really early on for me, like Dying Fetus, and even stuff like the Black Dahlia Murder. And I guess that really shows my age, but it definitely started with some like newer school stuff. And then over time, like, Cannibal Corpse came into the mix, and like Death and Morbid Angel and stuff, of course. But then at that point, I know this is kind of rambling, but at that point, I definitely had a moment where I was like, fuck death metal. And I got really into grindcore, because it was just so much more back to like punk, and it was simplistic, and it was literally just like, fuck musicality, like go as fast as fucking possible, like no riffs. And I still had like riffy stuff in my head for sure. I was like a big proponent of Hydra Head Records, like in high school. But grindcore was my cup of tea. I just wanted as fast as possible, and grindcore introduced me to noise music. I can't say I was like well knowledge on noise in high school, but I was definitely into Merzbow and Purient, and I thought like stuff like Throbbing Gristle was really cool. Just like really basic kind of shit, and I loved it because it was like to me, it was like you cooked down extreme like sounds just like into a freebase, and it was like the end point of all of that shit. Sure.
Well, I mean, like you said, you're like down with riffs as fast as possible, and listening to grindcore that almost becomes, amelodic and amusical. And it's more just like atmospheric and terrible. And then, I mean, like you said, you can just kind of distill that into power electronics and say, okay, well, this is more about the atmosphere and the texture and the aggressiveness of it, rather than about having any sort of song structure or, like, oh, here's a cool transition. It's like, no, this is just brutal to experience.
Absolutely. And that was what was like really, really important to me at the time. Like a band like Insect Warfare, their latter material, like, World Extermination and all that stuff, they just ended up, it was just like so sick and blown out to my ears at the time that it was just, I felt like it was the perfect like real punk music. And then obviously, meeting Full of Hell, like Spencer was into like all the same shit as me, so it was kind of like, it was perfect. He was such like a hard worker that when I met him, I was like, I got to be in a fucking band with this guy.
Yeah. And how did you guys meet? Because you guys are from pretty different areas.
Yeah. So Spencer's old band used to play shows up in central Pennsylvania, where I live. And when they formed Full of Hell, they formed it without me. And I thought it was a cool band. It was a little more mid tempo when they first formed, because it was kind of the group consensus, I think, when they formed the band, to kind of do like a band with some Swedish era overtones.
I mean, it's named after an Entomb song, so.
Of course. But it was like definitely more focused on like groove and maybe a little bit of a sludge vibe. And they cut a little demo and they started playing shows. And I met them through another band I had been filling in for. And that's when I like really started talking to Spencer, because he's kind of a quieter guy.
Yeah.
So it like took like a week of like playing shows together for us to talk. And I was like, at that time, I hadn't met a lot of people that liked all the same music I liked. And all I ever wanted was to have like, I was never able to have like an actual grindcore band, or like, this kind of like weird experimental artsy fartsy like grindcore even, which was like something I was really, really, really into.
Yeah. Well, so let me interrupt you and ask you this, because this is something that I've always thought about, because I grew up in a situation where I had a lot of other friends who were into similar stuff, and it was a very, that we would find stuff and show it to each other, and it was not necessarily a competition, but you were always kind of like, oh, well, like you like this band, like awesome, let me see what else I can find based upon that band. And it sounds like you're doing a lot of that exploration like completely on your own. Is that the case?
My parents, the disadvantage I had was that my parents didn't give a fuck about the internet at all. So we didn't even have the internet at my house for like 5 fucking years in high school, and like middle school to high school.
Yeah.
There was like a period where I didn't have internet, and it honestly, I think it like stunted me. But I definitely had like a core group of friends in high school that all had LimeWire and early versions of SoulSeek, and they were like just trying to grip everything they fucking could. So I would just get them to burn CDs for me. And in school, we had school computers, but they had like those fucking firewalls on every website. So thankfully, I was also friends with all the nerds, being one of them myself. So we had like proxies to get around that. So I used that to go on like Pure Volume and stuff like that. I couldn't download anything to the school computers, but yeah, I mean, it was always like, mining for like the new best band. My friends definitely went through phases that I wasn't feeling though. Like in high school, all my friends went through a huge phase with like Throwdown and like First Blood and shit. I fucking hated all that macho shit, man. Like I couldn't deal with it. I was into like my biggest era probably where I was like the biggest dork was like when I was into all the white belt grindcore, like The Locust and Daughters.
Yeah.
And Cattle Decapitation, all that stuff.
Sure. Who you just so happen to be on tour with.
Yeah, which is a total trip.
Does the singer still do a different face for every voice he does?
I mean, he definitely has a bunch of faces.
Yeah, that was always my favorite part of seeing that band, was that every voice had like a different face, and it would just be kind of like, okay, here's the low face, here's the high face.
Yeah, you can tell what's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. You can tell what's coming even if you can't hear it. His voice is still like disgusting. It's really awesome, and it's pretty cool. And it's cool with Cattle too, because at the time I don't remember like all the contributors they had on their records, but they were really into like a lot of the same shit that we've gotten into too. They had involvement with Merzbow and John Weiss and Yarbo, and it's pretty cool. It's kind of circular.
Yeah, is the guy from Creation is Crucifixion still in that band?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I'm not good with like names and members and stuff.
Sure. Yeah, that was always like a weird connection for me. I was like, that seems strange, but like you said, once you sort of know more about Cattle Decapitation and what they're into, it's like, oh wow, yeah, okay.
It makes sense. And right. Yeah, and it was a couple dudes from the Locust in the beginning, which is even cooler to me. Yeah. They happened to form like a fucking sort of gore grind, like tongue-in-cheek band, like that was like ultra brutal. I always really liked that.
Sure. Well, so I interrupted you, and you were talking about meeting Spencer and being like, oh wow, you also like everything. Did he also hate Throwdown?
No, he's a pretty eclectic guy, and I think he definitely appreciated it. I couldn't get down with that stuff. I don't like macho shit. I just can't do it. I don't know. I think maybe
because you're a beta male.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe. I don't know. I can't deal with it. I just don't like it. I don't want to be involved. I don't want to I don't know. And I definitely like some ignorant ass shit. I think Throwdown might have just been like so vanilla for me that it was like really macho, but it was also really fucking boring, because I definitely like some like aggro shit that Throwdown fans probably also love. Like you ever heard of Taste the Steel from like Western Pennsylvania?
No.
Like Erie. Taste of Steel was just like this, and I love like All Out War and 100 Demons, and that stuff's like ignorant as fuck. There's probably no distinction. They're just better bands. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I had like a weird thing where I was very pretentious at one point, where I only wanted to listen to stuff that was like very complicated or artsy, or I mean, like you were saying earlier, almost like breaking down music and not even having parts. And then I was like, everything that isn't hard to listen to is stupid. And then I had like a sudden moment where I was like, wait, it's okay to like mosh parts. It's okay to like pop punk. It's okay to not have to be like challenged by everything I listen to.
Dude, yeah, I got to a good point finally. I definitely went through that phase too. It's like you're so hungry to like prove that you're like some kind of intellectual,
some kind of monster.
Some kind of monster. One of my favorite documentaries, like genuinely. But yeah, I got to a point where I was definitely like, you know what? Ignorant music is wonderful, and it definitely has its place. I don't know who I was kidding though, listening to like Anal Cunt, like then being like a snob about anything. You know what I mean? like the dumbest fucking band on the face of the planet.
Yeah, that's probably lowest common denominator. That's fine
Like,
though.
like real deal grindcore probably has a lot of parallels that they don't really think about to like really ignorant ass like other subgenres of metal and punk, and they probably wouldn't want to hear that.
Well, I mean, I think
But
that a lot of that stuff has to do with sort of like in-group signaling within these like weird subgenres where it becomes you have to differentiate yourself so harshly from things that you're actually related to. It's like
yeah,
does
like no, we're not like that.
yeah, and it's like, does anyone actually know the difference between a Methodist and a Presbyterian? Like, not really. And you're like
Yeah,
kind of doing the same thing. So
you're splitting hairs.
calm down.
I think the best thing that happened for me in like the last couple of years with Full of Hell is like my taste has gotten broader, and I've definitely gotten really tired of that kind of mentality. And even there's like a lot of things I don't like for sure, but I'm more in the mood to just like be at least like supportive of everyone doing their thing, as long as they're making art that they care about and they're like doing their thing. I think that's fucking cool. I might fucking hate it, I might laugh at it in my brain, but I'm not gonna like get down on it, you know what I mean, and talk shit on it just because like I don't know, maybe it's a reaction to having like tons of strangers talk shit on my art, and I know how it feels now. And now I'm just like, that's not cool. Just let them do their fucking thing, man. Everybody's got their own tastes and opinions. It's fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's also the ability to separate your own opinion from, like, a more directed type of comment. Where, I mean, like you said, it's one thing to be like, well, I personally don't like this, and I may say something, harsh about it, but I don't necessarily mean that beyond this is what I think, and maybe I'm saying it in a way that isn't nuanced, but that's different from I actually hate this, and this genre needs to go away, and these people need to die, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, like that shit's just, when I see that, I'm immediately dismissive of the person at this point, And we've actually, another thing that's helped, like, I think, like, bring me down a little bit, make me a little more grounded, is like becoming friends with bands that get an unfair shake. Like Nails, I feel like definitely got like an unfair amount of internet attention over something that I feel like I understand was misconstrued, but I just thought it was like so whack, the amount of like secondhand hate I saw for Nails when they put out their last record.
Yeah,
because I think that record's sick as fuck. It's like Hatebreed for metalheads.
Sure.
And I don't know, when Nails clicked for me, I loved it. And I don't know, you just see every kid swinging at the lowest hanging fruit all day long, and it's like, what the fuck, man? Like, what are you doing? Like, those guys are just trying to do their fucking thing, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, a band like Nails becomes a placeholder for a cultural concept, and that people aren't even actually talking about the band themselves. They're talking about, oh, well, this becomes the placeholder for, some kid being pretentious and thinking that they're into something, and they don't actually know anything about it. And it's like, well, that has nothing to do with Nails, because, I mean, if you know those guys and have ever talked to them or listened to their music, like, that's not at all what's going on, but it's just a placeholder for you to be mad about something.
Yeah, they know what the fuck they're doing, and they love what they're doing, and they fucking write records that kick ass, and they're just trying to do their fucking thing. And I don't know, there's a lot of bands that I could point out that are like that, and I don't know, it's not always fair, but that's the internet, and like the good comes with the bad, and I know that they don't give a fuck about all that shit, which is good.
Yeah, it's helpful to have a thick skin.
Yeah, I didn't have thick skin. So like,
when was the first time that you experienced criticism beyond what you expected or were capable of handling?
I think I was always capable of handling it, but there's a couple defining moments, I feel like, in our band, and one of the first moments where I felt like the band started to get traction, like serious traction, was when we did the collaboration with Merzbow.
Sure.
And the thing with doing music with someone,
cosign from someone like that just automatically puts you in front of a lot of people. So.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, the thing with doing music with someone like Masami, like, he's such a heavyweight and such a legend, and we're just like, we're a new young band, and I think there was no way we could have come out of that without like somebody talking shit. And honestly, the reception was like, I thought almost like ubiquitously positive. So it was like we were riding really high, and then we started to see criticism, and it really hurt our feelings, because for a moment, I remember me and Spencer even being like, fuck, did we do this wrong? Like, I feel really bad. I feel like, did we let Masami down by doing this record improperly? Like, we did our best.
Yeah.
And I just remember being like, no, fuck that. I got to get over that. Because, like, I mean, with a genre like noise, like, people are so invested in their craft and so passionate about it because it's such a intense genre. I could understand being incredibly defensive about it and being incredibly critical. Because who the fuck were we? But I mean, I got over that. It was definitely tough at the time, though. We had thin skin. I think we still have maybe like one shade of thin skin left. It's almost completely gone. But at the time, it was like a little bit of a
there's
bummer.
just like certain comments that hit the right spot. It's like, wait, no.
Yeah, definitely. Mainly about how it was. People would critique how it was composed. It was a 2-piece album because we had this idea for like the first disc was going to be like Masami in a supporting position to our band, like he was the noise guy for Full of Hell, and Full of Hell's noise ratio is like 20-30% of the sound.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like, and because that piece was like the full band songs, that's the piece that everyone was like listening to the most, and that was the piece that ended up being critiqued as not having enough Merzbow. But there was a whole second album packaged in with it. It was a double CD, and the second one was the reverse. So it was like 30% us. It was like us supporting like a dominant Merzbow, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I know when I first heard it, I was expecting it to be almost entirely noise.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
If you come in with that expectation and you're like a noise freak, then you might
Dude,
be
I
mad.
totally get it. That's the thing. I was like, when I looked at it from that perspective, while it bummed me out a little bit, I was also like, yo, I totally get it. But the thing is, my favorite collaborations with Merzbow all sound like that. I love the stuff he does with Boris. He did this awesome record with Jamie Saft called Merz Dub, where it's literally like Jamie slammed all Masami sounds into this like reggae dub tube.
That
and it's like
sounds awesome.
Completely transformed. It's so chill and it's so sick, but it's not like harsh as fuck Merzbow. And Masami was totally down with what we did too. So at the end of the day, I had to stop being a fucking baby. It was never like dramatic or anything. We were just like a little sad for a minute.
Yeah.
But I had to stop being a fucking baby and just own it. Like, we still got to do it, and we still, I'm proud of what we did. We did our best. We'd never thought to do a collaboration before either. So it was like getting thrust into this big ass thing. We were just like, fuck, we better do this right. And I'm hyped on it, like people were happy with it. And it definitely introduced a lot of kids, like young kids that had no idea about noise into maybe like checking something out,
Sure. I mean, because I feel like even a lot of those kids have probably at least heard the name Merzbow, even if they haven't, listened to it. They're like, oh yeah, I feel like I've seen this at a record store or something. And then to have that, put in front of them. I mean, again, it's a cosign in both directions. So
totally. And I feel like there's like a burden to getting that like gateway band label thrown on you. But it's kind of like a proud thing to be. We were really, really influenced by a band from Ontario called the Endless Blockade.
Sure.
And I know like the Endless Blockade at a time was definitely like really bummed seeing like 100 Endless Blockade clones popping up all around the country. Like they've told me about what that was like, and we got in contact with them early on, and they were really supportive and had lots of good advice for us. And I feel like in turn we've definitely like been a band like the Endless Blockade where like we got a lot of like hardcore kids into like things they never would have heard before, like punks or like metalheads, like especially on a tour like this too. Cattle did a lot of like weird shit like back in the day, but like Cattle's like a full-blown death metal band now, and a lot of their fans like have no fucking idea what we're doing when we play. And it definitely like that's like a mantle that's I think you should be proud to bear, like exposing people to new things. It really means a lot to me when some kid like tells me or Spencer or Dave or Sam like, yo, I'm into noise now, like I'm really into this now, maybe because there were bands like that for me when I was a teenager.
And well, how much do you?
They
how
were
much
kids
do you,
like us.
Go ahead. Yeah, how much do you do that on purpose? I mean, are you conscious of like, okay, I'm going to try to push this type of thing out there to make sure that it gets exposure, or is just kind of like happenstance based upon what you're doing and what you're into?
I mean, our top priority is definitely just doing what we want to do and making like our favorite combination of sounds. So that's not like the top priority, but Spencer definitely prioritizes like posting like bands that we're really into and like making sure like anytime we do any kind of like interview or anything, he's always like, yo, check out this band and that band, like stuff that we feel is like the really real shit. So there's definitely always like a conscious effort to like bump our friends and involve our friends or cite our influences and just talk about like what we're into at the time. And I that's, you know, that's what it's all about, like sharing music. And because I think, well, like a good example would be like, there's this band from Buffalo, now defunct, called Gas Chamber. It's probably one of the most like inspirationally insane bands I've ever seen in my life. Like truly mind blowing. We brought them on tour when we did a collab tour with The Body. And I think there were like, I don't know, I think the audiences were almost entirely like new eyes for Gas Chamber. And, you know, I've seen kids that I knew didn't listen to Gas Chamber before those shows. And now I see them coming around, or I see their posts on Facebook and they post like Gas Chamber records, or they're wearing Gas Chamber shit. And it just like, that like is such a fucking sick feeling, because it's such a genius band, such a hidden diamond. I feel like it's a treasure that like nobody really, unless they really knew what was up, didn't know about that band.
Yeah. And not every band is going to, you know, have the circumstances and the wherewithal and all that kind of stuff to get themselves out there. So to have someone who already has an audience say, hey, this is the thing, you know, that's huge.
Yeah, and Gas Chamber was comfortable in their craft. They were doing what they were doing, and like, you know, if you knew about it, you were very fortunate. But if I could, you know, putting them in front of like 500 like hardcore and metal kids that had never heard a band like Gas Chamber, it could be pivotal for someone. And like it was pivotal for me, you know. When I watch them, my jaw drops. I think like, you know, there's so many bands throughout time, I feel like, that can change your life, and that maybe you just never heard of, and it'll just like fade into history. And I don't know, if you can get that band in front of some kid, you just never know what'll happen. It could be like the catalyst that straight up changes his whole perspective on music, his or her whole perspective. And because there were bands like that for me. Gas Chamber is a band that's like so pivotal and so genius that they should be heard by as many people as possible. And if we have that ability to like take bands that we admire on tour, that's like so fucking cool.
Yeah, I mean, I look back at like, you know, being into Alkaline Trio as a freshman in high school, and there's the lyric where they talk about U.S. Maple, and, you know, you're 14 or 15 years old, and you're like, oh, U.S. Maple,
that?
like, let me check that out. And I mean, same thing as you know, you download it off of Kazaa or something, and you're like, this is insane. Like, I don't even know what to make of this. And I remember listening to it and not liking it, or not necessarily disliking it, but just being like, I don't even know what to make of this, right? And then you kind of like go back to it a few times over the course of months until you're like, whoa, this is actually awesome. And then that opens up a whole different world of strange bands.
Oh yeah. And sometimes it takes a palate adjustment too. I always felt like with extreme music, at least with my growth when I was like pretty young, it was definitely like my palate getting stronger and stronger over the years. You know, when you first hear something, it might sound like nonsense to you, but you know, over time you'll start to get it. And maybe if you're like into that gateway band, your taste will mature over time to getting into like the stuff that gateway band thinks is extreme. You know what I mean? Because I don't think Full of Hell is like an unpalatable, like crazy fucking extreme band, you know, personally.
It depends on who you talk to.
Exactly. But like the stuff that I think is like fucking insane and blown out and extreme might sound like just nonsense to a person that thinks Full of Hell is the craziest thing they've ever heard. But maybe if they get into Full of Hell, they'll get into that.
Well, yeah, it's like the, you know, if when you're driving, everyone who's driving faster than you is a maniac, and everyone who's driving slower than you is a idiot loser who doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's perspective.
You're very comfortable where you are and just don't understand the things that are above or below what you're doing.
You know, I'm not really into making this metaphor, but it's always like the easiest way to describe this when I've talked about this to somebody. But it's, you know, it's a lot like drugs. So like if you would describe like Full of Hell as like weed or like ecstasy or something, makes you feel really good. It's really cool. It's kind of a cool high. But like then you get into like, you start getting into crazier shit, and it's like, you know, doing MDMA or something, and then you get into gore noise and and it's like smoking crack. Not that that's a good thing, but it's like the, you know, the most extreme high. And again, a bad metaphor because it's not good to like do heroin or smoke crack. But you know, it's, you just like graduate to harder and harder shit. Sonically though.
It's the yeah, you need more, and you acclimate to where you're at. You're on the hedonic treadmill, and then you gotta push it more.
Exactly. That's why I always describe like there's a grindcore band from DC that I'm a big fan of called Disciples of Christ, or like a grindcore band like Sissy Spacek. Those are like two of the best grindcore bands in the world right now. I like feel like they're like the freebase form of grindcore. Like if Insect Warfare was like really good cocaine, Sissy Spacek is like the cooked down like fucking crazy version that makes people eat each other's faces. Yeah, it's like bath salts or something.
It's they're just like taking out stuff from under the kitchen sink and
yeah,
sniffing the fumes from it and seeing what happens.
like get rid of the nice shit. Like just drink toxic chemicals and it'll like straight up give you the ultimate high. It'll just kill you. But it's like the end. Yeah, it's like the end of all that genre. It's like, I don't know. I can't imagine a band doing it better. You know, it's like the most streamlined, sickest, most extreme version of whatever.
Yeah. So let me return to your hero's journey of meeting Spencer and finding out you guys liked all the same bands. Then what happened with you guys? Because I mean, obviously, again, you're not necessarily close to each other, but you have this musical and spiritual connection. What happens from there?
So to abbreviate it a little bit, he kicked everybody out soon after that for various reasons.
Rude man.
No, fuck no. Those guys were pieces of shit. Anyway, he finds Dave. I know. Well, before I'd actually even joined, he'd already found Dave. We're screaming about something, but so he finds Dave at like 14. Dave's like a really talented drummer, and he gives Dave like a pile of CDs to check out, like all kinds of extreme music. Dave ends up being groomed to becoming like an absolute beast. But yeah, you know, when people were exiting Full of Hell, I found out about it, and I was like, I don't know, it just was like, felt like the right decision. I was like, yo, I'll join. And they were immediately like, all right. And I just started commuting down there to rehearse with them. And it's been 8 years of touring since then. It's just kind of, and when I joined the band, it was definitely like, I know, like, I remember Spencer being in the band with like the old members, and none of them would like help with anything. And I think that shit kind of drove him crazy. So like getting those guys out of the band and having like, and having me join and help with booking and help with like actually having a unified vision for the band, not having like people shit talking his ideas or like trying to derail what he was trying to do, definitely like helped propel the band forward, because it was just like more of a positive environment when there were like, you know, the group of us was like pushing forward. Because at a time it was definitely like, you know, there'd be like a bass player that'd be like, oh, grindcore sucks, like I don't really want to like do this kind of shit, or like, no, don't put noise, like that doesn't make sense. You get those guys out of the band, and then it was just like a lot easier for him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, get everyone on the same vision.
Yeah, because it was definitely like, it's always been like his master vision that we kind of like follow along with, you know, and like we're all like really into it. Like his vision was perfect. Sorry, we just rolled up to the venue.
No, that's good. Where are you playing?
We're playing Detroit tonight. Okay. It's called the Token Lounge. Should be fun.
I don't know anything about that place. Detroit's always a nice weird time though.
Oh yeah, remember when we played Detroit together?
Yeah.
At my buddy's spot, the Sanctuary.
In a weird abandoned church.
Yeah, man.
It was a good show.
It was pretty cool. I liked it. I like the guy that runs that place. Actually, he's coming tonight. That space shut down.
Well, isn't that like the second abandoned church that he's had as a venue that got shut down?
I think so. You know, he's been broken into many times, so it kind of fucking sucks for him. That's a dude that's been playing grindcore since I was a kid, you know, when he was also a kid, and I followed his band since I was like 15 years old. It's just a trip when you do stuff for like a number of years and like everything's kind of circular and you're like still friends with that dude and he's still into the same shit you're into after like, you know, becoming different people essentially. The sonics remain the same.
Yeah. You're like, what are we doing? Why are we still doing this weird stuff?
Yeah.
Do you have to go or do you want to keep going?
No, I can keep going. I actually I just signaled them and said I'm gonna
finish this. Gave them the gestures.
Yeah, they'll just yell at me later.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, the singer never helps load in. This sucks.
Actually, I load a lot. I feel like we all, I think we have a really good dynamic. Everybody's really focused, so we all load a lot.
Focused on loading.
Focused on loading and loading out and going to bed as soon as possible and playing the set properly. Yeah, the good things.
Those are all important.
Yeah, Dave and Sam are definitely. They have like the auxiliary focus of getting as fucked up as possible in the 2 hours they have after our set before we leave.
They're chasing the grindcore high, dude. So let's talk about the first time that we met at that show in Chicago. Where
oh yeah,
was that your first like U.S. tour?
If it wasn't the first, it was like the second. I think it was the first one. Yeah. Because did we have an LP or was it? Do you even remember? It's such a little thing.
No, you did not have an LP.
Then it was our first U.S. tour, and you fed us a deliciously healthy meal, probably the healthiest meal I had the entire month, because I was so fucking poor. I basically. Just a little backstory on how like it was for us when we started touring. My parents were definitely like, if you're gonna drop out of school and do this, like, we're not gonna help you at all. Like, you have to be responsible. They let me. I was living with my mom, which is extremely helpful. Not everybody has that opportunity even, so I had that huge advantage with that, no rent. But everything else, it was like, you got to fend for yourself. Like, I'm not helping you with money or anything. So I would go on tour and be like, all right, I have $100 for a whole month. Let's see if I can do it. And I would eat like 5-layer burritos every day from Taco Bell because they were like 99 cents back then. But so that meal you fed us was
what was it? I don't remember.
It was like a big scramble. So it was like a ton of eggs scrambled with like a bunch of spinach.
There you go.
It was really good.
Get you a little protein, dude. Well, and that we did like a workout at the show, which was like so Dave awkward, and I was like so embarrassed by it, kind of, because it was like,
no way, were you?
Well, yeah, because it was like a weird like pseudo folk punk thing where it's like, oh, every idea is good and everything should just be everything, and there's no filter, and like let's all just like wear name tags and like do a workout and make sure that everything is part of every single event. And I like kind of didn't want to do that, but everyone else was like, no, you have to like do this. It'll be so cool. So we did some like weird workout.
A bunch of people did it. I remember Dave did it. Yeah. That was on a
dude. He was like a child too. I was like, this. How old was he at that time?
16 probably, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
He that was at a time in his life where he was a little chubby, as like a lot of teenagers are anyway. But he was like, something clicked in his head. I think he met like a Krishna dude on the boardwalk who gave him some books, and like he read all of them and was like, I'm not eating meat anymore and I'm going to work out. And he just like, he went veg first and then vegan for a long, long time. And he just like lost a ton of weight. And like that, you caught him right on the cusp of that, where he was like, yeah, I've been working out and I'm definitely doing this thing with Todd.
That's cool. Perfect. Yeah. Well, there you go. The same thing. Gateway bands catch a kid at the right time at the right place, and then they
gateway workouts.
Yeah, gateway workouts at a weird punk show.
Yeah.
Well, so you're talking earlier about Spencer kind of having the vision for Full of Hell and kind of being the guiding force there. I was reading another interview with you where you talk about how Full of Hell is about the harshness of the world and coldness of human beings. And is that the like your philosophy in general? Is that reflective of what you believe, or is that more of just an artistic expression of that aspect of what's going on?
I'd say it's a bit of a melange of both, maybe. I mean, I'm kind of scared of human beings. I live pretty far away from people now. I don't like being in cities. I don't like being around people. I don't really trust in human instinct for the same reasons that we've already talked about. So what I write about in Full of Hell is like the realist version of like how I perceive like the cattle, like the way I perceive the herd going and how it's acted to this point in history. I want to believe in like human beings' better natures. And I think like on an individual level, it's a little bit easier, because I think when you get a person alone and you actually talk to them, more often than not, you can feel aligned with them, at least on like a deep level. Everybody just wants to live and find love and be happy and have a quiet, easy existence and die. But the herd mentality is dark.
So
it's like we're like a cancer.
Yeah. So do you have you say then a globally pessimistic view of human trajectory and human nature?
Oh, absolutely. When I look at the planet with my thimble of knowledge, I definitely think that we function more as a cancer. I think there's a lot of people on the planet right now that have good ideas and understand that maybe the trajectory of our species is off kilter and we're out of step with the world and we're kind of destroying the environment. But I think even with their best efforts, I really don't know if they can avoid like a total ecosystem destruction, some cataclysmic event that endangers us and endangers like the health of, the entire planet, really. So yeah, I don't think it's a unique opinion to have, but yeah, I think, I don't know if we can, I don't really believe that you can change the direction the sheep are walking in.
Well, how did they get to walking in that direction in the first place then?
Instinct, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's like the most innate part of like what makes us successful on this planet. We want to have full stomachs and we want to be comfortable, and it's like progress for progress sake, just like marching forward, making things easier and easier, not really thinking about the consequences. And I don't know, and some of that stuff, it becomes like habit, like trying to cut off oil dependency in North America. I mean, anywhere really, I guess it's like that around the world, or like even something as simple and stupid as like the fact that North America, or at least America, is on the standard measurement system and the rest of the fucking world uses metric. It's just like we're beasts of comfort, particularly in America, and like nobody wants to stop measuring things that way. We learned two systems. Can't we just do away with standard? It's like, I think it really takes like a big shock to shift the direction things move in. Like I always looked at 9/11 that way. It was such like that was like the big like American tragedy that I can remember in school. And I just remember thinking like, wow, look how polarized people get when something big actually happens. I guess this is what it takes. It takes like, larger scale death to motivate anyone. Like this is what has to happen for any kind of like change, bad or good, because that fostered Islamophobia and like war, whatever, it wasn't like a positive thing. Like fervent patriotism in the face of like super, super death. That's what it takes.
Yeah, because I mean, it's even if people want to, I mean, even if you look at basic behavior change, like you're talking about with Dave, where it's like, oh, working out or starting to eat a certain way or anything like that. A lot of people have ambitions of doing that, and most of them just don't.
Yeah,
and
lack of will.
Yeah, it's much easier to stay the course. I think there's also just so many minor ingrained habits that humans have that they don't even necessarily realize that can keep them on the same, path in terms of their decisions, where, you talk about changing your diet and it's like, well, that means you also have to change how you grocery shop. That means you have to change how you cook. That means you have to change how you go and interact in social situations. It means you have to change how you deal with food at work. I mean, there's so many pieces that go into that. It's the same thing with things like political beliefs or other bigger picture items as well, where
we're creatures of habit. I mean, it's as simple as that. I'm guilty of that too,
everyone is.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I'm guilty in most ways. But yeah, I mean, Full of Hell's like vision as far as on the back end of things, like in the lyrics and the imagery. I mean, I always tried to convey, I'm not, it wasn't always so articulate, but I'm trying to convey like the weight of having universal empathy, like in the face of all of that. It's like soul crushing. You think about all the suffering, not just human suffering. It's like maybe the idea of existence is like just like such a torture for most people and most creatures, struggling to survive, no peace, and then just death.
Yeah, it's heavy, man. It's the but that's probably been the case for most organisms throughout most of their history, right? Is that
exactly? That's our reality. and I don't know, it's kind of crushing. It's like coming face to face with something like going to Auschwitz. When I went to Auschwitz, you know, nobody enjoys that. It's just spiritually crushing. You can't comprehend it. It's incomprehensible pain. And I don't know. It's really easy for me to like kind of like accidentally tap into that pain just a little bit, like the littlest thimble, and it's fucking crushing. And it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. It's just, I don't know. I don't think it would ever stop.
Yeah, and
there'll be a new Holocaust, you know, forever.
And I think that like what you're saying earlier is, you know, it's some people have the capacity to empathize with that in some way where it touches them, and other people don't. You know, that can really affect how you view the world relative to how you experience seeing things like that.
Absolutely, and I just think like a priority should be put on trying to educate people to experience empathy. You know, because empathy would probably breed peace in most cases. Not selective empathy, but like a real empathy. And I don't think it takes much, because you don't have to be an intelligent person to understand, like, you know, the Syrian refugee crisis, or like, you know, a fucking Holocaust. There's such large scale ideas, but you know, the education would help if there was a little more priority on that.
Well, and it's I think there's an Adam Smith quote where he talks about, you know, you can find out about thousands of people dying in a natural disaster in China and sleep easily at night. But if someone told you, hey, I'm going to cut off your pinky finger tomorrow, you'd be freaking out.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes sense to me too. I mean, that's like a completely normal reaction. That's your bubble, and it's going to be disrupted. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's your body that matters the most, and that's probably the driving factor behind all of it, really. And I feel the same way. I mean, I have people in my life that I would give up my life for, but not everybody does. And I think a lot of people would not lay down their life for another's, especially a stranger. And that's survival. That's like core survival instinct. And it's sad, but that's reality.
Yeah. Well, and so you're talking about all these different, you know, visions of humanity and how that sort of ties into what Full of Hell is working towards in terms of expression. Do you think of the vocals and the lyrics as part of the same piece, or are they separated for you?
In what way? Do you mean like, yeah, and what do you mean really?
Yeah, so like if you think of like the vocals do you think of them as being more of like a percussive instrument as part of the music, or do you think of it as like, okay, the lyrics are tied to this? Because I mean, a lot of, you know, death metal and grindcore bands and things like that will have lyrics, but they're not actually being said.
I mean, they're actually being said when we play, for sure. But I definitely, as years go on, I want to put more emphasis on making the vocals sound as manic and fucked up as I possibly can. And, you know, pronunciation definitely takes a back seat, but, you know, the lyrics are definitely there, and they're certainly important. But I definitely look at the vocals like they're an instrument. You know, I want it to sound kind of unhinged and crazy, and like, you know, shifting tonality and stuff, definitely at the expense of pronunciation. Like, it's not that I don't care, but
yeah. But not even necessarily pronunciation, but I mean, do you view the lyrics as part of the music, or is it kind of like an accompaniment to the music?
Both. I mean, it's certainly part of the music. It's completely, I mean, it's written in rhythm and everything, and like narratively flows with the records. So it's definitely part of it all. Like, it's definitely crucial. And I think with death metal, sometimes you find that the lyrics are kind of a placeholder when the vocals are so extreme, you know. And I like when a lot of effort's put into the lyrics. I can't really speak for my own, but I definitely put a lot of effort into them, and I take them really seriously, and I want it to convey some kind of emotion and add like color and depth to a record for a person that's like actually looking into it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I mean, I think that you know, some bands will view the lyrics almost like the album artwork, where it's, you know, it's part of the record and it's important, but it's not the music. It's just like, okay, here's a thing that goes with this.
it's surface aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I mean, for the casual viewer, you know, that's not going to read the lyrics, like maybe it doesn't matter for them, but when, you know, this band is about us. It's about when we play, like feeling it. And I, you know, the lyrics are my biggest contribution to the band. Like that's what I have to give. And I want to be able to feel what I'm singing when we play. So when we play, you know, with lyrics that actually have like some feeling behind them that means something to me, it's really easy to perform and really get into it when I fucking feel it, you know? So yeah, they're super crucial. Maybe I'm hesitant to say like that the lyrics are more important than most other bands like in the genre, because that's definitely not the case, but they're extremely important for us.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell, obviously. I mean, like you said, if you listen to the record and look at the lyrics, it's like, oh, okay, wow, yeah, you're setting this up so that this line hits at this time, and there's obvious structure to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's like basic songwriting. I definitely take cues from different vocalists over time, and yeah, I mean, a well-paced grunt can really make set off the next part like in such a heavy way, make it that much better. You can add accents and everything, and those things are really important. And I'm not the only one that has to do with the vocals either, because Spencer definitely helps guide like tonality in the voice when he sometimes he has a very specific vision, like I want gutturals here, and I want kind of like a kind of thing like here, and or like don't hold this out so long, like stop this dead stop, and like I totally respect his vision with the songs, and he 99.9% of the time I feel like has just the right idea if he has some kind of vocal input.
Yeah, we just recorded the Hate Force LP, and on one of the songs I wanted James to do, I mean, sort of you're saying, just like transitions, just hit like a hard O or something right at a specific spot. And he was like pushing back. He's like, dude, I don't know, like this is stupid. And I was like, no,
man,
you have to do this right here.
I mean, we have a big mutual respect for each other's palettes. So I really, really, really respect Spencer's taste in music, and I hold it very highly. I mean, he's responsible for showing me a lot of shit that I'd never had heard of. Some stuff that's changed my life even after I joined Full of Hell, and completely changed the scope of music for me.
Like what?
So, like Gasp.
I don't even know them.
Gasp, not a lot of people do. Gasp was a power violence band from California. It's one of the singers from Despise You. Cynthia, I think her name is. And some other dudes that I've never met before. We've been corresponding with them lately because they're doing a reunion show. Gasp was like psychedelic power violence. So imagine like really cool tape loops, lots of fuzzy layers of strange sounds. And when it obviously thrashes really fast when it gets going, and really sick vocals. But it was just like, imagine the dreams of like an astronaut who'd been smoking meth for like 1,000 years and was just floating around in space.
Sounds delightful.
Yeah,
you should write the little sticker that goes on their album for them.
Oh, I want to. That's where I want my end to be, writing the little stickers on albums.
Yeah, send them that little quote.
Well, actually, I had a friend who runs a label, and he wanted me to write some descriptions for his bands, and his bands are more like direct. Where when I write descriptors, I want it to be like kind of over the top and like just weird. And I think they were too weird because I didn't use them. He was like, "Can you write for this and this?" And I was like, "Sure, here we go, slam." And they were like, he didn't really. I don't think he wanted to tell me that it wasn't good enough, but it definitely was like way too weird.
Yeah, it would just like bum people out, and they would not buy the record.
Yeah, and
like, I mean, okay, sounds bad.
If it was in the wheelhouse of like Full of Hell or like Godspeed or something, it would probably make a lot more sense, because I like it to feel more abstract. I mean, the beauty of the English language is like you can use certain words and it just like slaps a color on it immediately. I always liked that, and that's super important with Full of Hell song titles and all of that stuff. Is just certain words just click in my brain, and they just sound so good at the time. Yeah, and I have to use them.
Well, you said slap the color on it. I mean, do you mean in like an actual like synesthetic sense, or in a more figurative sense?
More figurative. Like I feel like certain songs definitely. I always attributed color to to like, you know, other forms of media that maybe aren't visual, you know, like songs and albums have colors and feels. I think like I really like when a band intentionally has a color palette for their album layout. I don't know if a lot of bands do, but you know, when there's just like 2 or 3 colors involved in an album layout and it totally matches the vibe of an album, like, I don't know, it's really cool. You know, our friends Code Orange, they're really into that too. I know, like every time they do another record, they use like a different color. And
Yeah, it's always like orange.
well, they did they did a green one, and then they did a red one, and I think they felt like red was the color of like, I don't even know, like anger or something. I don't know, but I really respect it. It's fucking cool to use that to their advantage to kind of shape their aesthetic.
Sure. Well, let me ask you this. So you did a tour with Immolation and the Cavaleras not that long ago.
Oh, yeah.
And Immolation and Sepultura are 2 of my favorite bands. But Roots is definitely not my favorite record. And they're playing that in full, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about that tour. Did anything awesome happen? Were there any good stories? What's the deal?
Well, it was consistently awesome. I'll start with Immolation. So I'm a huge Immolation fan, obviously, too. I mean, I think they're a really like a pretty much a perfect death metal band. I love the subject matter. Obviously, technicality is it's not like overdone. All the riffs they speak, it's so fucking sick. Obviously, from top to bottom. So we were like really looking forward to meeting them and hanging out. First day of tour, we show up and I just walk over to talk to Ross and introduce myself. And we had stayed in the casino the night before because we stayed in Vegas and we'd eaten this like fucking ridiculous meal, like pigs. And I asked them, like, so where'd you guys stay last night? And he was just like, oh, we slept in the van. And immediately I was like, to me, that was like immediately like 1,000,000 points of respect. I was like, that's so fucking sick that these heavyweights, zero ego, clearly, not above sleeping in the van to like hustle and make it work. And like, it was just sick. They just like, I can't really describe it other than that. Those guys they really got a grip on DIY. And it's just humbling to see a band like maintain that high of level of musicianship and keep it real for so many years and have so many awesome records. And they're still just the most down to earth dudes ever. They don't put on airs or anything. They're just like real fucking people. And hanging out with them was so cool. And it turns out they actually really liked Full of Hell. And we talked about touring again. And they gave us all kinds of good advice. The best stories of touring, because they've been touring for so long. Like anything pre-GPS, pre-internet, like touring wise or early days of internet
lost
is fascinating to me. Like touring Europe in the early 90s in an RV before, I don't know like what the deal was. When was the EU formed? Do you know offhand?
No, I don't know. But
I mean this was in an
not
era
in the 90s.
This was in an era where the EU may not have been formed. I can't remember offhand. But they're like, whereas now when you go to Central Europe, it's really easy to get around, even if you don't speak German or Dutch or whatever. Then everything was, you know, completely isolated. The countries definitely had more of like a country-to-country feel. Like now you just drive right through and you don't even really notice. But then it just seemed so much more difficult. And obviously no internet. And they just had really cool stories to tell. And the Cavaleras obviously are responsible for the whole experience even happening. That whole family is really great because, you know, for a long time I felt like I didn't really notice whether a lot of like bigger death metal bands like Heroes were taking out small bands that were coming up on DIY and really doing their own thing. And the Cavaleras, like Max was one of the first guys I noticed that was actually giving a fuck. And maybe it was just because he was rapping Full of Hell that it really struck me.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a Full of Hell patch on his punk vest for a long time.
Yeah, for years. It's faded as fuck. And I just thought it was so cool.
He also has a patch that says, fuck that shit.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's a wild dude. I just thought it was so cool that he was over the top. Sorry. I just thought it was so cool that he was, you know, repping newer bands. And he put his money where his mouth is and he takes them out on tour. And the whole family's so kind to us. You know, we met his son Igor first. And we would always hang out with him. And he's such a fucking cool dude. And we just got along with the whole family. And you know, when they offered to bring us on tour, I was like, wow, they're really going to bring us out. This is really cool. And they were always, you know, come on the bus, let's talk about music. And they were always like, you know, Big Igor was always showing me like sick sick noise stuff and drum machine and electronica shit, you know, because he has Mix Hell with his wife, and they do all kinds of cool stuff. And I don't know, it was a really positive experience. It was like it was very fortunate because, you know, it wasn't like you go on tour and the headliner's a dick and they don't really talk to you, and it wasn't like that at all.
Make
it was
you play
like
quiet and cut your set
exactly.
short.
And I hear those stories. It was like fostering the tour, and everybody was like a family. And I just remember on the last night in Santa Ana, we were just chilling with everybody, and Max was talking to Spencer, and he was like, dude, you got to come to my warehouse. I'll give you some guitars. Like, you know, we got to hang out, blah, blah, blah. I'll see you guys this and that. And Igor and I were exchanging shit, and like dudes from like Dillinger Escape Plan were there who I really fucking loved. And it was just like, I was just remember thinking like, this is probably one of those moments that I need to remember, because this is actually like, you know, like we're here. This is a cool thing we have to remember. This is fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you start a band and you're as a child, and it's like, if you told me in this amount of time that I would be hanging out with Max Cavalera and he's like trying to give me stuff, you'd be like, no, I don't think that'll happen.
Fuck no. Yeah, and I wouldn't even have hoped for that, you know? I like specifically went into this trying not to have expectations, but secretly expecting the world. You know, I want like whatever we can get. I want to be as successful as we can possibly be and do as many cool things as we possibly can. But I don't want to set my heart on it because, you know, tons of talented bands that deserve it never get their due. And who's to say we deserve anything? None of us fucking deserve anything. But it was one of those moments where I was like, I gotta remember this and be grateful for this. It's really fucking cool. And then, you know, throughout the year, it's just been like more of that feeling. Very positive.
So you guys are talking music with Max. Let me ask you, like, what is he? I mean, how does he find stuff? What is he into? Because I am so interested in Max's musical history, because going from, you know, those early Sepultura albums to like pseudo starting nu metal is one of the most insane and hilarious musical trajectories I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, he's an artist, so I think like whatever catches his brain, you know what I mean? Like who's to say what a normal trajectory is for a person like that? So like, yeah, he starts out with all the raw manic and thrash stuff and then moves on. But I think nowadays he's really, really into a lot of shit that is ironically vaguely influenced by Sepultura back then. You know what I mean? So it feels very circular. He fucking loves nails and pulling teeth, and he loves Noisem, and he likes Full Hell a lot. And you know, when I listen to the new Cavalera Conspiracy record, it definitely feels like a throwback to like earlier vibes of Sepultura. It's really fucking sick. And those guys, even we told Igor and Max about Arthur Risk, the producer from Philadelphia. He's in Cold World and did all the Inquisition records and Purient. That dude's a fucking genius. I think there's going to be a time in a decade maybe where he is regarded as like extremely important in like, you know, the world of extreme music. And to those that know what's up, he's already at that status, like for us. So we told Max and Igor about him, and fucking I know Arthur was like a drum tech for Igor as well, and something clicked, and they were just like, they signed on Arthur to produce their record. And I think that like that shows that those guys have their ears to the ground. Yeah,
and they'll just like they'll be like, okay, cool, and they'll check it out, and then they'll take action on it.
Yeah, they give it a shot, and I don't know, they don't, you know, those guys, that's another group of people that I don't believe they don't let ego get in the way of their music at all. I think they have like very good intentions with everything they do. I think, you know, I get really fucking pissed off if I hear people talking about, oh, Max and Igor are doing a cash grab. You know, I don't like arguing on Facebook because it's fucking pointless, but I've definitely like talked shit back to people that I saw saying that. I didn't see it a lot, but because they don't know those people. Yeah. And I can say that I do. And I think they have pure intentions, and they fucking love music. They talk about music all day long. They share music. They check out new bands. They take new bands on tour. Yeah. And it's a big fucking deal getting to play in front of people that would have never, ever found your band.
I mean, I think that people saying stuff like that on the internet also they have a very poor understanding of like the economics of extreme music as well, where it's like, dude, if absolutely. Your goal was to make money, there's just so many better ways to make money than playing in a death metal band. Like,
I always say that, like, you have to be a fucking fool to, that's why when I talk shit on like if I talk shit on like people that are involved in like whatever side of the music industry, I call them fucking morons, because if they're trying to drain blood out of the metal scene, they're morons. I mean, they're also obviously hacks, because if they're in it for the wrong intentions and they're taking advantage of artists and whatever, I mean, they're crooked as well, but they're also morons, because I mean, there's just not a lot of fuel in this thing.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, well,
to drain.
Yeah. And you look at a band like Sepultura, and, you know, Max's history with Sepultura and Soulfly, and, I mean, doing stuff with his brother, where it's like, you know, that dude has gone from playing packed arenas with tens of thousands of people to playing to nobody, just like back and forth for decades.
Yeah, he's doing it because that's what he knows and loves. And Igor's the same way. That dude's prolific as fuck, man. He's always playing music. That's his shit, period. So I would back those guys forever. I think they're fucking awesome. It was very fortunate for us to get involved with them. And yeah, it's, you know, with Roots, like they did that one, and I think they did that one specifically because of when that record came out and what happened when that record came out. You know, he didn't get a chance to tour on that record, and I think, you know, they really came around to looking at it again, and they were just like, fuck it, you know, we wrote this thing, let's tour on it. And they have discussed doing other ones. I know that. I hope they do. You know, they were talking about Arise. I would love to see a Chaos AD tour.
Yeah.
I think if they did Chaos AD, there'd be a lot of violence on the tour.
I think that many people, many of the big boys would mosh excessively.
Fuck yeah. There would be a lot of old big dudes. I can think of a few in Chicago even that would definitely be hitting the pit.
There would be some big pit boys.
Yeah, man. But, you know, hopefully they do.
So you guys have a new record, another collaboration with The Body. Give me the rundown. What's the deal?
Okay, so we did a collab tour with The Body after we put the first one out, and it was really fun. While we were on the tour, or just before it, Lee from The Body suggested doing another one. I didn't have any intention of doing another one. You know, not that I didn't want to, but I just, like, I didn't know if it needed. You like hated the guys in The Body and didn't want to be around them anymore. Yeah, pretty much. But I didn't know if there was anything left to be said or not. So, but when they asked, of course, I was just like, yeah, fuck it, why not? Like, I love doing things with them. As you know, anything that will extend the amount of time that we're able to play together and write together, I'm down. So we plan to just hit the studio again after that tour, like we did the first time. This time when we went in, we were definitely a lot more comfortable with each other. And did you guys write in the studio again? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, even more so than the first. Like the first time, I definitely had more concrete ideas than this time. But, you know, we felt really comfortable this time, and we really went off on a tangent, and I really like it. This is one where, like, the first time around, we definitely tried to make a record that I felt like would appeal to Body and Full of Hell fans, like people that are fans of both. This one, I could see fans of either band not liking it, just because it's more extreme. But I think anyone with experience with the bands and with the genres that we're into might find it really cool. And I really like it. And I think the other guys really like it too. So, you know, that's all good. I'm a little nervous to see the reviews. I guess they don't really matter a whole lot. Skin thickened up. Yeah, I know, but not as thick as it needs to be, I suppose. And this one's like, you know, this one's pretty out there. You know, if the reviews are bad, like, it's whatever. But we're cool with it. So Thrill Jockey is putting it out. When does it actually get released? November 21st or 2nd or something like that. We actually picked up LPs though 2 nights ago when we were in Chicago. So we're selling it now, and nobody knows we have it. So that's pretty cool. Like, people come up and they're like, "Oh shit, I get it a month early." So now it's 100% leaked for sure. I think it leaked months ago though, like on some circle of the internet. Yeah, I mean, isn't that just the assumption that everything leaks? Yeah, but, you know, if we're really anal about it, like, we keep it from leak. Like, Trumpeting Ecstasy, we did a pretty good job of keeping it hammered down. The way the, like, quote-unquote, like, music journalism works nowadays, literally anyone is a music journalist, so it's not very hard to get on a PR person's press
I get a
list.
Bunch of stuff sent to me, and I'm not a music
of course.
journalist.
And, like, exactly, and they're watermarked, but, like, what are you honestly going to do if you're a one-man label and someone leaks your record? Like, you're not going to fucking sue them. It's not detrimental to your record. So What's to stop a journalist for Cult Nation in Portugal from leaking your record? Nothing. Shame, like a tiny bit of shame when the label owner's like, what the fuck? That's it. So yeah, I think the records always leak. But I like to keep the surprise. I don't care about them leaking, but it's like a huge amount of the fun for me is like the unveiling of like a track. It's just fun for me. I like to build the suspense. That's just part of the experience. So I feel like if someone was to like big time leak our record early, it would just ruin the fun.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I care about.
Yeah, I think that we're probably one of the last generations to have that experience of not being able to hear something or find something and then, you know, waiting for it to come into a record store or something like that.
Oh, for sure, man. I mean, and however it shifts. I definitely am not opposed to the piracy, and I think it's foolish to try and stem it. And I like the idea of money leaking out of the music industry, because if there's no money to be made, like, who will be left? Just those of us that just want to make music to make the music.
All the trust fund kids will be left.
Oh, the trust fund kids for sure. But they're transient, you know.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they'll find good jobs to make a lot of money.
Cool. Well, man, let's wrap it up. You gotta go load, man.
I don't have to. It's all done.
You gotta go carry stuff in for the band.
Thank you. I told them I had a big giant feature with Spin Magazine. That's right. I have to do this.
Exactly.
I have to do this. You guys have to do the work.
It's for the good of the band.
Yeah.
So if people want to check out Full of Hell, what is your recommendation? What should they do?
Soulseek.
Okay.
No,
LimeWire, Emule,
yeah.
Kazaa.
Yeah.
Oink.
Any of those services. Don't click on any Russian blogs that you don't recognize with weird links.
Rapidshare.de.
Yeah. I mean, we have a Bandcamp like anybody else. So it's really not hard to find us. That's the funniest part, is when you have a conversation with like a 50-year-old guy and he's like, how can I find your stuff? It's like, Google. I don't know, man. How about 60 seconds of Google at your kid's computer? 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and you find 100 links talking about how bad our collab with Merzbow was, or what we said this time and then.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all there.
It's all
no matter
documented
who you are.
Forever.
Yeah, I'm sure there's Todd and EF threads everywhere with your whole history of your life, all of your X bands.
Yeah,
it's encapsulated on the internet forever.
Yeah, I haven't Googled myself in a while. Who knows what's out there? And if someone, where should someone start? What would you recommend for dipping the toe into the water of noise and grind and death metal that is Full of Hell?
I would be very unoriginal and suggest just the newest one, Trumpeting Ecstasy, because I think we all like whatever.
Yeah, it has a Herzog quote at the beginning.
Yeah, a nice pessimistic, goofy Herzog quote. You know, we thought about different ways to modify the voice so that it wasn't immediately recognizable, and then we realized he has such a recognizable voice. There's no way in fucking hell you could drop it 8 octaves and it just sounds like a Herzog in space.
Yeah.
It's Herzog.
Well, I mean, I think that anyone who's actually seen that movie too, like, that's one of the most memorable things that dude has ever said.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
the first time I saw that, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what are you saying right now?
I thought it was really funny when I first saw it too. But I also felt like it had it would have multiple levels of feeling for a listener, you know. Those that know see the kind of like the sad humor in it. This poor, pathetic, sweaty complainer.
Yeah, it's this weird combination of just kind of complaining, plus making like a weird, extreme, dark point.
Yeah.
Plus having like some sort of, you know, philosophical understanding of the nature of existence. Plus having this just like absurdly pessimistic to the point of hilarity view on stuff that just like doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, and you know, in a way like that I never really even thought of, that kind of matches the band on like a level that we don't even intend to, like, perfectly, because we definitely like have some humor too. We don't take ourselves like 100% seriously. Yeah. So it worked out. And to be fair, if I was in the rainforest, I feel the exact same way. I fucking hate humidity. I hate being covered in bugs, and I don't know. The jungle wants to eat you, so it's definitely a hostile environment.
Yeah, it has very little regard for your health and your wealth and your future.
Yeah, and Herzog didn't really have health on his side then, nor now. And can you imagine him running from a panther?
No, but have you seen have you seen the clip of him getting shot with a BB gun?
No.
It's insane. I'll send it to you. He's like being interviewed for Access Hollywood or something.
A stranger shoots him with a BB gun.
Yeah, just like some kids are probably like, "Oh, some guy's getting interviewed. Like, this is awesome. Let's shoot him." And he like
shoot that old fuck.
He like it cuts him. He's bleeding, and they're like, "Oh, are you okay?" He's like, "It's just a flesh wound. I'm fine."
I have seen that. Never mind. I saw that a long time ago. Oh fuck! Still send it to me though.
Yeah, it's.
I want to show everybody again. Man, that's so fucking sick.
Dude,
it's just a flesh wound.
Dude, that and the clip of him talking about the jungle just pretty much encapsulate probably my worldview and. Yeah, really.
Yeah. It's kind of a shame that he's like, it's one of those things where we all kind of like have a little laugh, like because he's such a character. But I thought his his cameo on that cartoon Rick and Morty was really funny. But at the same time, I was just like, man, just like it almost turns him into too much of a clown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen Rick and Morty at all.
I haven't seen the Herzog episode, but that sounds like something I should.
Well, the husband, I think the context was the husband was getting his penis removed, or it was like they had to like cut his dick off to save like the universe or something, basically, or to save some like really important person's life. They had to cut the dad's dick off. And Herzog comes in and he just talks about like, existence and penises and like penis jokes. I'll send that to you because it's really funny. Obviously like Rick and Morty's got kind of a volatile audience of like just nerd bros, but I mean, at the time I thought it was pretty funny, if not a little bit of a bummer, because I still respect Herzog quite a lot.
Right, and you don't want him to just be like a punchline for, like, oh, here's like a weird guy who says strange stuff. Yeah,
I mean, it almost, I'll never completely shake that feeling of like wanting the things that I appreciate to be mine, Sure. So whenever anything hits the limelight really hard, maybe in a context that I don't completely agree with, it kind of bums me out. But I'm getting better. You got to ignore that. Yeah. When stuff gets really popular, just keep it to yourself the way you want it to keep it.
Well, I mean, full. I'm sure there's people who feel that way about Full of Hell.
About any art, yeah, absolutely. As soon as it hits a larger audience, it's
like,
either not.
Oh,
cool,
they're on profound lore. This sucks.
Yeah, imagine the person that feels like Profound Lore is like big time. It's a label run by one guy. It's fiercely independent, like unbelievable. Well, I can't wait to sell out though. I'm sure the time will come. We'll do something crazy.
Yeah, you got to get sponsored, man.
I want a Ray-Ban sponsorship.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sponsorship is definitely the wave to be riding. So yeah, Ray-Bans, Taco Bell.
Taco Bell does do a program where they give you money, and it's always like the worst bands that get it. There's my shit talking for the podcast. I won't name names, but they always pick out like 100 bands, and sometimes it's people I know, and sometimes it's just like some random ass fucking garbage of like Warped Tour shit, like some scene core shit, and it's just like, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't want to post about it. I wouldn't want to be like, oh, yo, we're teaming up with Taco Bell. I mean, I think the context is a little different for our band, though. I think it would devalue our product.
Yeah, but it might also just be like insane and hilarious too. I mean, I think that sometimes
it depends how we present it.
Yeah, I think bands can like, or even artists can justify some like weird sponsorships where they're just like, this is insane. Like, let's just do this because this will be comedic to have to try to present this as a thing that we're supporting. I mean, like the Tim and Eric advertisements are a great example of that.
Exactly, like Totino's and stuff. Yeah. Very good writing. Spencer definitely wants a Monster Energy drink endorsement, and that would be like the ultimate douche endorsement.
I mean,
but
you guys could probably actually make that happen,
dude. I'm pretty sure there are bands that we know that get it, and they get like a check every month.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Monster actually is like legitimately helpful for extreme music too.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, they give Josta tons of money.
Yep. Every month he gets like a check.
Yeah.
And I'm not positive, but I feel like some of our peers are starting to like definitely tap into that shit, and I think it's cool. We have some things. We have the important stuff right now that we really care about. Like we finally have like everybody in the band has endorsements for their equipment. the drums were the hardest, and which is crazy because Dave's the most talented. Dave's the most talented one out of all of us, but it's because drum companies want, and I'm not bad mouthing this style either. Like it's not us, but they want like YouTube videos of like playthroughs
like
and
drum
shit.
playthroughs and yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. They want their brand like really visible and like, you know, that's not for us.
Yeah, the market who's buying drums is like the weirdos who are just going to sit there and watch playthrough videos and everything. So
exactly, they want it like flashy and triggered and all that. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's a whole grouping of metal bands that are really good at doing that, and like it's cool. But Full of Hell's like, that's not Full of Hell style. So it was hard for us to get it. But at this point, we've done so many fucking things that like Spencer sends out the emails with all the things we've been doing, and like finally it clicked, and Dave was able to get his first new drum set in like 8 years. Because you've seen us play. We play on he plays on like the rustiest, most fucked up kits, and he always makes it work. So I was so happy for him to get a new drum set. You know, he deserves it.
You know, he's come a long way from the 16-year-old chubby boy thinking about working out.
Yeah, now he's boss status. Grown man, 22 years old, paying bills and blasting on his drums.
Hey, this is Todd again, and as most of you know, I consume, read, listen to, watch an absurd amount of content on a regular basis, and a few times per month I send out my thoughts on some of the most interesting or insightful stuff that I've taken a look at. You can be on the list to receive this fascinating, captivating, and delightful information at toddneef.com. That's I before E. Head over there, go ahead and type your email address in, and then as I send these things out, again, a few times a month, you'll get it, and you'll be inundated with a carefully curated list of the best stuff that I am experiencing.